And we're ready whenever you are, Mayor.
Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's City Council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raised hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button to be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Tulley.
Here.
Councilor Silly.
Here.
Councilor Powers.
Here.
Councilor Scamperly.
Here.
Councilor Stevenson. Here. Councilor Trim. Councilor Weaver.
Here.
Quorum present.
We have one presentation tonight from City Manager Fonda Cronus regarding fiscal year 2025 fiscal fundamentals and budget parameters.
Thank you, Mayor. The presentation is on the screen, and for those of you at home, the presentation is in the handout section. You're absolutely more than willing to open that up and follow along. If you want the next slide. As the new city manager, I've been here close to 3 months now, and that gives me the ability to start digging into our financial numbers, but it also, because I'm new, gives me the opportunity to still stay a bit detached and look at what the numbers are telling us in more of an objective fashion. I haven't really dug in and been invested in the numbers as much as somebody who's been here for a long time. And the story that I see as I look at the numbers is a story of too many needs and just not enough resources. And that's not to say that every budget is in that situation, from the federal government all the way down. But it's more acute here in Ogdensburg. And if we go to the next slide, one of the stats that I'll throw at you is that since 2019, our total non-property tax revenues are down 19%, but costs are only down 9%. And when you look at those things and say, okay, well, 19 is way bigger than 9. Where's that other 10% coming from? How does the city make up that difference? Well, there's a number of areas that the city does have to take a number of steps, and none of them are necessarily positive ones. You can cut discretionary spending, which has been done. You can utilize fund balance and interfund revenues. Those only have a certain amount of time where you can do that and be effective. And then, of course, there's the property tax levy increases that nobody wants to do. So if we move over to the next slide, we see that city revenue declines are most likely due to the drop in sales tax. And what I did was I grabbed a headline from a North Country This Week article from 2021, and you can see the title there. And it talks about preemption sales tax that happened in 2022. And in that article I read, and I quoted from the article saying the goal was to collect at least $4 million. But if you look at the chart on the right-hand side there, you can see that once preemption happened, sales tax revenues declined precipitously and came nowhere near that $4 million goal. And that creates a hole in any budget. And I would love to have that extra $1.4 million. Trust me, the fiscal year 2025 budget would be a heck of a lot easier with an extra $1 million so in revenue, but we just don't have it. And I'm not making a judgment call on preemption and whether it's right, wrong, good or bad. What I'm saying is these are the cards that we've been dealt, and we need to understand what these cards have resulted in and how we need to address them long term. So if we go on to the next slide, if you take all of city's funds and combine their operations, their total of revenues and their total of expenses, combined, the city ran at what we call a deficit, or in the private sector, you call that a loss, a fiscal loss. If you look at the chart, I went back, my look at back period was from 2017 up through 2023 with a projection for 2024. And the green line are revenues and the red line are expenses. And you can see between 2017 and 2022, which was really the year of preemption, revenues were higher than expenses. And what that means is the city brought in more dollars than it spent, right? And that's what we call in the business a surplus. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you surpluses are always good and deficits are always bad. But if you look at the trend, you want to have a little bit more money coming in so that you can cover future capital costs, right? You'd rather be in a surplus situation than a deficit situation. From 2022 on, and assuming that our projections are correct for 2024, you can see that has flipped and expenses are higher than our revenue. So we're spending more than we're bringing in. That is a deficit situation. That's the loss that we talk about. And municipalities like a city are not allowed to run deficits like the federal government can run. So we have to make up the difference and balance our spending. And we do that by pulling out of our fund balance, which you can think of in this case is our savings account, right? And anybody who has a savings account at home, if you take money out of it, the balance goes down. And unless you put more into it, the balance doesn't change. And if you keep taking out, keep taking out, eventually your savings account is going to have nothing left in it. And that would be fiscal disaster for the city. So we see 2022 and 2023 as deficit circumstances. 2024 will be another deficit circumstance. And we predict 2025 will be more of the same. And to balance our books, we're going to have to continue to draw off a fund balance. And those are limited funds and what we call in the business one-time funds to pay for recurring costs. That is a bad situation to be in and something that we have to address. We change the, going to slide 6. This drop in revenues makes cities' finances unsustainable in the long term, right? If we continue to take money out of our fund balance, we can't take it out of there forever. Eventually that'll be zero. And that makes it unsustainable in the long term. This chart basically takes the next step of the last one and says, okay, in 2020 and 2021, we had surpluses, right, in the green part, the smiley face. 2022 and 2023, we had deficits. And if that trend continues, we're going to have to continue to draw off of. Again, this is not sustainable, and our collective budget goal has to be to put the city's financial position as a stable position. We need to have sustainable long-term fiscal plans that cause our budget to become structurally balanced. Going on to the next slide, this is a nice busy slide, but they all tie in together. When our revenue drops, the city has to rely on its property tax, right? We have to levy more property tax to cover our costs, because costs over time generally increase, right? We have contractual obligations to our employees for raises. Generally speaking, the things that the city buys and procures is going to go up over time, won't usually go down over time. But we can only raise the property tax so much. So there are limits to that. And if we draw off of our property tax, eventually we have to stop drawing off of it. Here's what I mean by that. So the chart on the left shows you as sales tax revenues have gone down over time, you can see that the property tax levy has gone up, right? So sales tax has gone down. We've made up a lot of the revenue that we needed to make up for by raising the property tax levy. The middle chart shows you the precipitous drop in non-property tax revenues over time, with that dotted red line is the trend. Not a good trend. You want revenues to be going up, not down. And then the most important diagram on the slide is where our levy falls within our constitutional tax limit, right? So there's a formula that says we can only raise so much in property taxes given our assessed value of our properties. It's actually a 5-year average of that. And the closer you get to 100%, the more disastrous your fiscal position really is. And I'll give you the example. In 2024, the property tax levy was $5.7 million. Next year, our maximum levy allowed is going to be around $6.3 million. That's only a $600,000 difference. We are up at about 94, 95% of the CTL. If there were to be some type of a disastrous thing that happens, we needed to levy more property tax to be able to cover it. We really only have $600,000 what I would call legal. And that is not enough in the state of Michigan. So we are in some significant challenges when it comes to where our property tax levy is in comparison to what we can legally extract from property taxes. Moving on to the next slide, I just wanted to talk about structural balance. And what that means is, do the revenues that come in cover your recurring expenses? And when they don't, we need to draw on our fund balance or our savings account to do so. And if we were to continue doing that at the levels that we have, there's a good chance by 2028, there will be very little, if any, fund balance left to be able to draw. And again, I talked about this as being a recipe for disaster, and something that we need to make sure that we start addressing. And we hope to do that in the fiscal year 2025 budget. So on the next slide, I think we all hope for better things for the city of Ogdensburg, but hope to me is not a plan, and I'm a public administrator, so I always have to have a plan on things. So I have developed, with the help of the management team, a kind of a two-pronged attack, short-term and long-term. In the short term, I think it's critically important that we stabilize city finances. I'm going to talk about what that looks like. And on the longer term play, we really need to be developing the local economy with a focus on retail. And I say a focus on retail because you know where the hole is in our revenues, it's in the sales tax. Retail generates sales tax. And so I will never say we shouldn't have another manufacturing facility in the area. That would be fantastic. And I'm hoping that someone will come in and create jobs. But our economic development has got to have a big time focus on retail to fill that hole that's no longer there for sales tax. But if we talk about that short-term play, which is stabilizing city finances, I look at it in two ways. And so what I've done is I've worked with the management team and I've developed two parameters by which we are going to formulate the preliminary budget to present to council next. And in our next meeting on 15th of October, we will have the preliminary budget in hand. So the guideline or parameter number one is to get our property tax levy at 80% or less of the CTL, the constitutional tax limit. If we go to the next slide, I took a word from the New York State Controller's document that talks about the CTL. And basically getting city finances in order means having a levy below that 50% of the full CTL. And I won't go through the entire work here, but basically what it says is the closer you get to 80%, the less flexibility you have on your finances. Getting to 80% really puts a strain on your finances and your ability to be able to raise funds to cover even just basic costs, but certainly anything that's emergency. And once you get to 90%, you're really limited. And we're at 95, 94.7, I think, percent of CTL in 2024. So we really need to start lowering that number, because if we do get in a position where we need to rely on the property tax levy, those dollars just may not be there. So the next slide, the summary of this is it's probably impossible for 1 year to get to the 80% CTL. That would mean we'd have to cut $640,000 out of the levy, and that would devastate city operations. And I don't think that that's wise to do. What's probably wiser to do is do it in steps. So if we go on to the next slide, you can see a plan here of basically taking last year's levy, cutting about $117,000 from it, and then subsequent years cutting that same amount. And in 5 years, by fiscal year 2029, we're going to be right around that 80% of the full CTL. So what that means is that for 2025, the preliminary budget will not give a property tax levy more than the 2025 levy number of $5,599,055. It might be less, but it will not be any more than that, to follow along with parameter number one. The next parameter is eliminating the use of one-time monies paying for recurring costs. So what I really mean by that is stop appropriating fund balance to cover our costs. And we need to do that. So if we go to slide 16, I also look at that there's no way we could take the $1.4 million we appropriated in 2024 adopted budget and eliminate that completely. That would, again, be an operational recipe for disaster. We just don't have the revenues to be able to make up for that in 1 year. And we certainly can't afford to cut any more discretionary spending. And we do have mandatory spending that we have to perform mostly in our contracts, our promises to our employees. But if we take a gradual look at reducing our fund balance usage in our different funds, by 2027, we could be at zero use of appropriated fund balance. And that puts us in a very good position where we're not withdrawing up fund balance. And hopefully, if we're running some surpluses, we might be actually adding to fund balance where it makes sense. We certainly in the water and sewer fund need to be adding to our fund balances over time. We know that we have a $25 or $30 million need in our water infrastructure. And at least trying to cover the local share of those grants, should we receive them, is a way of planning for and having those dollars as opposed to bonding for them. But in the sewer fund as well, we are going to continue to need to upgrade and to keep our facilities up and maintained. And you do that by making sure you have adequate fund balance to be able to take care of those one-time costs over time. So if we go to the last slide in the presentation, what should you expect from the 2025 preliminary budget that we present to you? As I said before, number one is I will not present you a levy more than $5,599,055. I hope it's less, but I promise you it will not be more than that. You'll also see a decrease in appropriated fund balance in all three funds. We need to stop relying on one-time costs covering recurring operational costs, or one-time funding, sorry, to cover operational costs that are recurring. We have to stop doing that. A third thing you'll see in the preliminary budget is a list of department needs above and beyond current services. So I asked departments to provide a current services budget for next year. And what that means is, tell me how much it's going to cost next year to provide the same level of services this year. And then what I ask departments to do is say, okay, I know you need other things to make your operations go. Tell me what those things are. And we're going to try and fit as many of those as we can into the preliminary budget. But you'll get a list of every item that department heads asked for, and you'll know whether they were included or not included. And what council can do is they can accept the inclusion as is. You can certainly say, I don't think that's a good idea. We want to take that out. And for those enhancements we were not able to fit into the budget, council can consider them and add them in, either increasing the levy or decreasing another service to pay for the enhancement, or maybe a combination of each. But I think it's important for the public, and I think it's important for council to know what department heads feel they need to do their jobs properly, and what our fiscal constraints are in being able to include those things into a budget. And the other thing you can expect to see from this preliminary budget process is a capital improvement plan updated. It's critically important that we understand what our long-term costs are. And if we don't plan for them and know how much that is going to cost us in the long term, we can't figure out a strategy in which to get those bills covered. So we will start and continue to work on capital improvement plans so that we know what our long-term costs are going to be. And those eventually get factored into years and years budgets down the road. When we know what we're going to do, when we're going to spend it, we will utilize those and put those into the operational budget. So with that, that gives you kind of an update of what our fiscal position is in the city, and how we're going to formulate the 2025 preliminary budget with what the rules of the game as far as I'm concerned are. Now, council can accept, reject, or modify those parameters as it sees fit, but I wanted council to understand how we are looking at fiscal year 2025 from a budgetary standpoint, because in our next meeting, you'll have the actual document to start working on. And so I open up the floor for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Fonda. Any questions or comments from council?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I appreciate your method here, starting with the goal and a long-term goal, and the fact that you understand we need to lower taxes, and presenting to the public at least the idea of step by step how to get there and achieve these goals, and promises that you just made. So that's good. I thank you very much, Fonda. It's a good presentation.
Thanks. I can't say they're promises, but I will say that they are goals, and circumstances always change, and we'll have to just keep looking at them. But I think that this is a good framework at least to start from.
Yeah.
Trying to get more money from the citizens. I have a quick question though. What would some examples of the one-time money that you're talking about?
So one-time money would be fund balance, right? So what ends up happening is in 2023 is a good example. The city spent more money than it brought in. And so some of those are going to be one-time. We bought a hammer. We don't have to buy that next year. We may bought a car. So those are one-time costs. But for the most part, our costs are recurring costs. Personnel are recurring costs. Contractual expenses are recurring costs. If we, the folks that do our web services, right? We have a contract with them every year, and generally those go up. But we certainly that would be a recurring cost. And what we need to get to is a point where the recurring revenues that we cover the recurring costs. So I don't know if that completely answers your question if you're trying that way. One-time monies are when you spend more than you bring in. You think about your household, right? You get up, well, this month you're like, oh, geez, I brought in X number of dollars and I'm short my electric bill. Pay that electric bill, you might go into your savings account, grab that money. Right, that electric bill is going to come next month. Your income may or may not change, but let's say you're on salary and it doesn't change. You've got to figure out a way to bring in more money to cover your electric bill. So next month, or you're going to pull it from your savings account. Eventually your savings account is going to be zero, but that electric bill is still going to come.
Okay, I thought one-time monies were like pots of money we had for one.
We can certainly think about that in those terms. For example, if we were to pay the wastewater treatment plants that they pay, we received a bunch of grant monies to pay for that. And certainly that's a one-time, but that's a one-time cost with a one-time revenue source. What I'm talking about is covering somebody's salary, and we can't do it with our sales tax and all the other monies that come in. So we said, okay, we spent more than we brought in, so we spent $250,000 more than we brought in. We've got to grab $250,000 from our savings account to cover salaries, to cover recurring contracts and those kinds of things. That's the circumstance that we find ourselves in right now.
Councilor Stevenson?
So could you just explain if you have some insight as to why the sales tax dropped? Was that due to loss of retail sales within the city? Was it due to the reconfiguration of the sales tax formula? Because if we're going to focus on that, we need to see why we had such a significant drop.
Certainly. So prior to the preemption, the city received funds from a formula and a deal with the county, right? There was an agreement. And I think the number is 6.44% of county activity would get refunded back to the county as sales tax revenues. And what you would say is that when preemption happened, basically what that says is whatever sales tax activity is happening in the city, the county is going to get half, the city is going to get half. And the result of that was a number going from $4 or $5 million a year through the formula to the, what you might call actual, of closer to $2.6 billion. So what we want to do is focus on economic development that will rejuvenate and build our retail sales. Retail sales charge sales tax, and we would get half of every sales tax dollar that gets generated.
Second question is, we saw a significant spike in revenues on the cusp of 2020, 2021. Was that due to relief payments due to COVID, or was there another reason for that spike?
Certainly the COVID dollars came into play, but I can tell you in 2021, there was a huge jump in sales tax all across the state, every county, and I think most counties are enjoying that to this day. And I'll share with you that our city sales tax is up about 8% this year as well. So a lot of that has to do with our ability to charge sales tax for internet sales items. That's a big thing. And that happened around the same time as well. So I think some of those increases were certainly COVID related and the COVID dollars that came through. But others of those were just the huge jump in sales tax that every municipality, I shouldn't say every, but most municipalities enjoy over that period of time, especially 2021 and 2022, where sales tax numbers just jumped through the roof.
And I just want to say also that I do like this presentation. It really makes it very clear to our citizens and to us where we are, where we need to go, and what has to happen. I just want to say cautionary, these are really great goals, but we've already cut over the last number of decades a lot of the fat from our budget. So this is when we're going to start cutting into muscle that's really going to really hurt. So it's not going to be an easy task to do this. So I think we just need to acknowledge that.
I think that's true, and what the management team and I have tried to do is reallocate the resources that we can reallocate where it makes sense to do so, and that will maybe mitigate some of the pain that you're talking about. But you're right, these are gonna be tough decisions to make, and we will initially make them, but council will have the final say on all of this.
Thank you.
The numbers speak for themselves, but I'm quite honestly quite surprised. I was not on the council, but I tried to do a lot of figuring when they were talking about the preemption. And I figured we'd be close to breaking even, not necessarily better off, not necessarily a lot worse off. And I still to this day question whether we're getting all the sales tax that we're entitled to. I understand that we're not allowed to look at the businesses or know what businesses are paying taxes. Only our comptroller can do that. But I just am surprised that, I looked at the population and the retail stores in each community, and I am totally surprised that our sales taxes are down as much as they are. I agree with the COVID and the online sales and stuff, what happened in 2021. But again, thank you for the presentation, something that was missing on my previous term. So.
Councilor Powers?
Yeah, real quick, really great job with this fund. It's a good breakdown. It's a good, it's a good table to start with, as both of them have mentioned here. I mean, there's not much left, right? I've been here for some time. Dan's been here for some time, recognizing that how vital sales tax is to any economy or any local government or county government. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe I saw that St. Lawrence County was down 19%. In the last reporting quarter. I think I saw that on a Nikon.
I'd have to look. I do chart them, but I don't recall.
Or a report from the comptroller.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to be careful with that because things do balance out, and they do have quarterly rebounds and reviews. So you have to look at the numbers holistically as opposed to one period versus another period, because some adjustments can be made, especially on the quarterly numbers as well. So I'll do a deeper dive on that for you just to
I don't think it's really relevant right now, but I just it's trends, right? Like you said, in 2021, the whole state saw a spike in sales tax.
I didn't think they were down that much, though.
I think for the county?
Yeah, I didn't think they were down that much.
I may have misread it. Maybe it was 9% or something. But at any rate, it's good, and I like the goal for the constitutional tax limit. And that's going to be a task, and there's a lot of heavy lifting here, in all reality. And but it's well done, and it's outlined well, and I hope many are listening, so that many of the people can get an understanding of it.
My comments will echo to a degree some that have already been made, but I do appreciate the structure of this presentation tonight, providing a history of how we got to where we are today, and then the goals that have been established to achieve a lower tax levy tax rate to get us at about 80% of the constitutional limit. I will be curious to see the detail on October 15th. Speaking first about the general fund, if I'm reading numbers correctly, a reduction of applied fund balance after adjustment for this year by $350,000, a reduction of the levy by $110,000. So I'm be curious where that $500,000 is going to come from to balance the budget. What additional new revenue we're budgeting, or where on the expense side we're going to see reductions while maintaining current level of services. That's going to be a neat trick to see. But again, we'll wait for the details, and then we'll have an opportunity to explore that. I think it's important, at least my perspective, for the public also, in looking at this on the slide 16 with regards to the sewer fund, a reduction of applied fund balance next year of $350,000 is going to mean a significant hit and increase in the sewer rates. Which is going to, I think, offset to a degree any potential property tax savings we might see in the proposal as presented to us tonight. So we continue to have challenges in all funds, but I like the structure of what's presented to us tonight, the goal, and then the challenge will be, can we get to those goals? Anyone else on council? Again, Father, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You and your staff, thank you very much. We have one public hearing tonight regarding an ordinance to amend section 149 of the Augsburg Municipal Code entitled Parks. This is going to be Bill 73, and I will open that public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the podium and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. If anyone attending remotely would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please use the raise hand feature in the upper right-hand corner of your screen and you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
I therefore declare this public hearing closed. That brings us to personal appearance. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Gardner. I live at 119 Elizabeth Street. I'm also the chief of the Augsburg Volunteer Rescue Squad, as all of you know. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to discuss an issue that we all know is going on. I know I only have 5 minutes tonight, unlike the normal presentation. I respect that. I'll do the best I can. It has come to my attention that Claxon Hepburn North Star Alliance has requested a certificate of need to start an ambulance service in St. Lawrence, Jefferson, and Lewis County. I unequivocally am against this act. If they request support from this council, I would respectfully request you deny this request. In fact, I would ask this council to draft a resolution denying your support for this action. New York State Department of Health does not issue certificate of needs for just transport ambulances. If they received the CON, they would be able to place ambulances anywhere in our county and run 911 calls. I believe this is their final goal. Over the last year, OVRS has had ongoing discussions with Claxon Hepburn Medical Center on ways to help alleviate the problem they have created. OVRS has hired 2 paramedics to run transports. In fact, we even placed them on 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. shifts, which Claxon Hepburn has requested us to do. On September 18th, myself, Treasurer Storm Silly, and President Mike Page met with representatives of the North Star Health Alliance to discuss how further we can meet the needs for additional interfacility transports. Now, we have been doing this for a year now, having these consistent meetings. This is a problem which we have been discussing with them, and we were led to believe that this would be a continuation of those talks. Obviously, we were wrong. During the meeting, we were told that they were contemplating obtaining a CON and purchasing 2 ambulances for transports. They wanted to place one at Claxon Hepburn and one at Carthage Ambulance. By the time we finished the meeting, the gentleman that was speaking implied a possibility of 4 to 8 ambulances in the future. We were also told that they had not yet made a decision on how they were going to proceed. The letter that you received was postmarked the day before our meeting, requesting your support. In fact, they even sent the same letter to us, dated September 17th. We were meeting with them on the 18th. So they had already made their decision, and they flat out lied to us in that meeting. In fact, during our meeting, the press conference that Mr. Duval held with Channel 7 was filmed. The reality is that they want to purchase 3 ambulances, hire 30 employees to start with an eye towards further expansion. Rumors that they have already purchased the ambulance and approached area paramedics. In fact, that's not a rumor. They have approached area paramedics about coming to work for them. The flat-out dishonesty has destroyed our ability to trust them in further dealings. In fact, I received a phone call on Thursday, the day after that we met, and all the letters and the press conferences went out asking us to come back to the table and discuss some more future dealings. At this time, I informed them, probably not so nice terms, that the trust has been kind of broken and we need a little time before we come back to speak with them. I would point out that in 16 years that I've come before council, I have never one time lied to any of you. There is no need for additional ambulance services. There is a need for additional personnel to staff the existing ambulances and allow us to meet their needs. The problem is that there are severe shortage of paramedics available to hire, not only here, but state and nationwide. In New York State, 70% of all certified EMS providers are working at 2 or more services just to make a living. Their 30 proposed employees would be poached from existing services, further threatening the service's existence. New York State does not issue CONs restricting a service to transport only. During the past 12 months, we have averaged 5.25 interfacility transports out of Claxon Hepburn per week. 190 since the first of this year, and I'm sure Canton Rescue, Seaway Valley Ambulance have taken similar numbers. At least 25 patients have also been transported to the airport for transport by air medical during that time. These transports have been to Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, Burlington, Cooperstown, all over the place. One set of destination is not uncommon for the patient to sit in the emergency room for up to 4 hours before being seen or admitted. Many of these transfers are for true immediate life-threatening conditions, but honestly, how many? This also creates a huge stress not only on the patient, but also on the patient's family by forcing them to pay for hotels, meals, travel costs to be near their loved ones. We have already been considering adding additional personnel to help with this, but as I said, things have gone a little sideways at this moment, but we are not opposed to continuing those discussions down the road. I heard my little buzzer go off, so I'm going to hurry up here. As I say, OVRS see an increase in patients requests to be taken to facilities other than Claxon Hepburn. We request accommodate non-life-threatening situations when possible. This means that our ambulance is out of service for 40 minutes when we have patients in this city saying they want to go to Canton Potsdam instead of going to Claxon Hepburn Medical Center because of the care that they have been receiving at Claxon Hepburn Medical Center. In our opinion, Claxon Hepburn and the North Star Alliance would be better served Augsburg and surrounding communities by investing in bringing additional physicians and medical services to our community. OVRS has served the Augsburg surrounding communities for 65 years now. I also remind you, we continue to do so by answering almost 3,000 calls a year and doing so with a scratch rate of 99%. In other words, we mutually aid out 1 of every 100 calls that we get. This is the best in the county. Since this news has broken, I have also spoken with state and county legislators and speaking with other ambulance companies in St. Lawrence, Lewis, and Jefferson counties. All have expressed opposition to this proposed CON from North Star Alliance. If this council would like to sit down with me or Mr. City Manager, I would be more than willing to do so. But until that time, once again, I ask the City Council to not support their request and adopt a resolution opposing North Star Alliance's request for a certificate of need. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors, for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim.
Good evening, Wendy Hamilton. I live here in the city. I appreciated seeing the budget presentation tonight, and I think it was in very clear layman's language, so I appreciated that. I too wondered, and this is in reference to Storm's comment about how low our sales tax revenue is, it seemed really low. And I'm just wondering if we've done an audit of that. I know we individuals can't see, which businesses submit, but I've seen it in other places where they do kind of a sales tax revenue by sector. So whether it's coming from, utilities or whatever, online. So I don't know if you have access to that or if you see it, if we know where the drop has been precisely. I also like the old trust but verify. So is everyone in the city who's supposed to be collecting sales tax doing that? I know I was shocked as president of Friends of the Library to learn that because we operate a small bookstore, used bookstore, and have regular used book sales, we have to submit sales tax. We have to, so we don't collect it. I mean, our folks don't see it, but we submit based on our total sales per quarter. I'm wondering if all the other nonprofits do that. Maybe someone should look into that. I do see regular sales occurring, and there's a lot of cash businesses in town, and we have a lot of vendors who come to town for special events. Do we get that sales tax? Because a customer doesn't always see it because, the vendor absorbs it, but are they submitting it? So I say trust, but verify. The other thing is, in sales tax, are we able to impose an additional sales tax here within the city? 0.5%, 1%. I mean, I don't know what the rules are around that, but I know that they do it in other places. Because if what we're saying is we've got to come up with some additional revenue, maybe that's one way that we spread that pain. It's not just to the property tax owners, it's to everybody. And maybe we do it for a couple of years until we've built up our retail businesses. I don't know. Just some suggestions. The last audit, which is the old trust but verify, is our exempt properties. Are they truly performing nonprofit or charitable works? Or, I mean, the state, yeah, well, it's all the others. Should they be exempt? So I personally know of a couple of places where, honestly, I would question that. So I don't know who does the audits in town, but might be time to verify. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, now if anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature. The city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you will have 5 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Greg McNamara, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted, sir. Mr. McNamara? His line is showing open, sir, but obviously we can't hear him.
Is there anyone else in the queue?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, so we'll move on then. At this point, correspondence, I believe you have one letter tonight.
Yes, we do. The Lions Club and Seaway Festival special events are hereby requesting approval to host the annual Holiday Light Up the Night Parade on State Street in Ogdensburg and the Visits with Santa at the Dubisky Center on November 23rd, 2024. We will be ending the night with fireworks on the city property at Lighthouse Point. The support of the city of Ogdensburg is crucial to the success of this very popular event that kicks off the holidays in the city. Thank you for consideration. Respectfully, Rhonda Rothel, Chairperson, Holiday Light Up the Night event.
Thank you, Kathy, and I'll note for the public that this request will be dealt with bill number 83 in our agenda tonight. Next, we have our consent agenda that declaims as enumerated in general fund warrant number 18-2024 in the amount of $645,848.06, and library warrant number 18-2024 in the amount of $0, and capital fund warrant number 18-2024 in the amount of $69,548.37. And community development fund warrant number 18-2024 in the amount of $76.14. And community renewal fund warrant number 18-2024 in the amount of $0 as audited, be and the same hereby are ordered paid. I so move. Kathy, please call the roll.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
approved.
We have one appointment tonight. I make a motion to appoint M. Penny Sharrow to fill the unexpired term of Teresa Pinkerton on the Recreation Commission, term to begin September 23, 2024, and then December 31, 2028.
Second.
Any comment?
Great choice.
Appreciate Penny stepping forward to be part of this Recreation Commission. She's certainly been involved with the youth of our community for several years, and particularly with the city for her interaction, supervision, and direction at the city pool. So, Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
approved.
Our first item of business will be read by Police Chief Mark Kearns.
An ordinance to amend section 149 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Parks.
I'll move that.
Second.
We have moved and seconded. Chief, would you just talk about the highlights of the proposed changes?
Yeah, essentially, major changes are already existing. All parks in the city, for exception of the Greenbelt, close at 10 p.m. So looking to change it just to state all parks are to close at 10 p.m. So it's just standardized. Makes it easier for enforcement for the men and women of the police department to remember, okay, is this park closed at 10 or this one closed at 11? It's just strictly they're all closed at 10. Also by practice, for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been closing the gate at the park at 9 p.m. every night to vehicular traffic. So now we're just putting that actually as part of the code to actually shut the gate itself at 9 p.m. to close the park to vehicular traffic. Noise ordinance for the entire city is already at 10 p.m., right? No loud or excessive noise after 10 p.m. So that changed it for the marina as well. They used to state at 11 p.m., but that contradicted itself in other parts of the code. So that changes to 10. Just trying to make things standardized.
All right, and I also note that under camping in section 149-5, that no person or organization shall be permitted to sleep overnight in or upon municipal property. That's a new addition to this
Yes.
code.
Yes, so previously they had to erect some sort of a tent for us to enforce the camping section. So if they were just sleeping down there in a sleeping bag or nothing at all, even with complaints, they're, well, now the parks are closed. So now we have several sections of law for people to not be in our parks overnight.
And then section 149-5, section 3, letter J, under canines, the chief of police or the city manager are also added in addition to director of parks and recreation, who may during scheduled events prohibit canines, leash or otherwise from appearing in any or all portions of the park.
Yes, currently we don't have the director, so it gives the authority to the city manager or the chief.
And then under section 149-6, use of the marina, letter H, going forward, towing of an inflatable device with passengers, commonly known as tubing, within 100 feet of the marina or municipal dock to be prohibited.
Correct, it's just an addition to water skiing.
Yes.
Essentially within 100 foot of the shoreline anyways is a no wake zone. It's New York state law, so it's just added safety. and just liability for the safety of all citizens, just liability for the city. No stooping or skiing around the marina.
Understood. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just have one question. It kind of expands on a change here. I've had some calls recently from some parents that are concerned that alcoholic beverages are prohibited in our city parks without some kind of authorization, if granted. And I know that back maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we looked at enacting a no smoking policy in our parks. But now that we have chemicals that are being smoked, legalization of marijuana, other things that are in vaping devices, things, parents are very concerned. They don't know what's being smoked on the park bench next to their child sliding down the slide. Has any consideration been given to that at all?
I'd have to have some research presented to me to, I guess, something we can bring up at a staff meeting,
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
of course.
Can I ask a question about the canines? Is this, it says during scheduled events?
Sure.
So people can't bring their dogs?
Right. So like fireworks night is a perfect example. We don't allow dogs out at the park. The last thing we need when we have thousands of people down there is to have dog fights. So we say no bikes, no dogs. Not allowed down at the parks. So that's why. That's not every event. It's certain ones. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Chief. Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Fonda Cronis.
Thank you, sir. A resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a New York State DOT application for the use of state highway / New York State DOT property to allow the 2024 holiday light up the night parade route to be designated as State Route 68.
I'll move that.
Second.
Questions or comments?
On page 3, the description of the intersections, et cetera, doesn't match up with anything in Ogdensburg. Intersection New York 5 and Main Street, New York 9A and Smith Road and Jones Road.
May I address that, sir?
Yes.
That's just an example, sir.
Okay.
We have an attached safety plan that is submitted. That's just their example of what the wording is that they're looking
So our
for.
safety plan's not with us. Okay.
Yes, we have a safety plan that gets submitted along with the map, proof of insurance, and other documents.
So
That's just an example provided by DOT.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Kathy. Any other question or comments? Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Approved.
Next, we move on to old business, and our first item will be home occupancy, water, and sewer rates. I'll turn it over to Mr. Cronis.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you at home, there should be another handout that you can refer to if you'd like to follow along. Council asked management to work through the water sewer rates for home businesses. And so we put together some information for you to consider. So if we move on to slide number 2, one of the first questions that we were asked is to dig into the data and find out how much or how many houses are designated as housing and business, and probably how much revenue is generated for that. And I'm sad to report back that the data search that we conducted was inconclusive. We had a data system crash last year towards the end of 2023. Data was recovered from that crash, but it was certainly incomplete. And a lot of the opportunities for us to be able to look at categorization of properties, it just is not necessarily possible. Management sat around the table and tried to crunch the numbers at the best we could. And our best guess, and I would underline that this is a best guess, is there's roughly 20 to 30 properties that would fall into this home business category. And because the data is inconclusive, management basically decided to say, we probably can't quantify the number that council wants us to. We probably should just move into trying to come up with a solution that helps to answer the equity question that's been posed to us. And so we did that. So if we move on to the next slide, management is supporting a code change and specifically to revise the definition of the commercial/residential mixed structure. As you can see in the slide that you have in front of you, the red letters are really pointing out in addition to the language. So anything that's in black in that definition remains, and anything in red would be in addition to. So I'll read it. The current code starts out saying, and we would recommend keeping the first sentence, a structure containing one or more commercial or office units in combination with one or more family units. We would propose to keep that. Then we would propose to add the following language. This definition applies where the commercial or office space is regularly used for business purposes by patients, clients, or customers, or where goods are assembled, produced, or manufactured for resale. We would propose to keep the next sentence as is. Each commercial or office unit is treated as a separate unit for billing purposes, either under a flat rate or metered billing system as determined by the city engineer. And then we propose to add Director of Public Works or the city manager. As we were talking about equity and the importance of trying to deliver equity for the entire population, discussion came up in our management group. What about businesses that basically use their address for mailing purposes, that do all of their business outside the home? Is it fair for them to have to pay to waters and sewers? And management would argue and that is not necessarily the best definition of equity. So what we thought would be better is to modify the definition of a commercial/residential mixed structure and then apply it from there. So that would be step one of our recommendation, council. If we move on to the next slide, step two is really to try and identify designated properties and get billing options. Staff at this point has identified roughly 40 potential possible home business entities that we probably would like to review. We will continue to work with county and state sources to try and collect data more efficiently and effectively, but that's what we've been able to come up with thus far. What we propose to do is to contact property owners via letter and ensure that the proper designation of either a single family unit or a commercial/residential mixed structure is the case and proper for that particular property. So if you want to just turn the page, I've kind of got a diagram. This one makes more sense to everybody. So on slide 5, you start with the top box that's in black and white letters, properties that we've identified as staff, and sending out letters. And the first question it asks is, it says that your property is identified as a potential CR mixed structure. If the answer is no, we ask that you return the affidavit, check mark the box that says we are not a CR mixed structure, we're a family unit. Attest to that by signing and then having it notarized, return it to the city, and we will make sure that that designation is recorded and reflected properly in the billing. We'll have a notarized document that a property owner has signed stating that's the case. So if there are complaints or any other investigations find otherwise, we will have some evidence to say to the contrary. If the property owner does identify their property as a CR mixed structure, we ask them to return the affidavit as well, but we give them 2 potential billing options. One is keep things as are in charge by the unit as the current code states, or we ask them to make the choice to opt out of that and opt into metered billing. And that would be kind of a new method of invoicing. We would ask that the property owner purchase the meter, pay for an inspection, and have the meter installed by a licensed professional. We think that this gives equity of choice and some ability for us to have a paper trail on the properties. Certainly, there'll be some concerns about, geez, how much does a meter cost? How much is this going to cost to have you put in? So on slide 6, we did a bit of a comparison. You can see in the first part of that comparison is how much meter service cost versus flat rate, and then a flat rate with 2 units. And you can see that the annual total cost, these are for 2024 rates. So a meter with the amount of usage not going over the maximum allowance, so that's important to know, is $1,264. Flat rate is $947 for a home. And then a flat rate with 2 units would be almost $1,900. So obviously the delta of getting charged free water and sewage versus putting in the meter from a billing standpoint is roughly $630 savings, one over the other. The next section of this little chart talks about the cost. The meter is $350. The city inspection will be $90. That's $440 plus the cost of installation of the home that the property owner would have to absorb. So we think that in a circumstance where we're installing a 3/4 inch meter into a 3/4 inch line that does not exceed the allowable gallons at 2024 rates, the return on that investment is roughly 1 year. And all subsequent years savings is going to continue to generate. So next steps from council would be really to have this discussion. If it accepts management's recommendation, we would certainly consult with the city attorney on the code change, any enforcement mechanisms we need to put in. We would certainly have to hold a public hearing to do code changes. If those code changes were adopted, we would continue to compile data as it goes on month after month. We would send out the letters with a goal to have everybody squared away and determined and decided upon billing by the first of the year.
Thank you, Fon. Any questions or comments from council?
Yes, it's not what I consider to be ideal solution, but I think it is a solution for the time being. I think ultimately our best solution is to go to a metering system citywide. However, there are some pretty considerable expenses involved, which at this time, I don't believe we have the funds to do. I trying to bring my memory back. It seems to me that in the early 1980s, the city actually had purchased water meters. And the reaction from the public to going to a meter system was so adverse that they sold them to another nearby municipality, and it never happened here. But that is the only true fair way. You know, I myself as a pool owner, I'm sure I'm getting much more water than my next door neighbor who doesn't have one.
So, just piggybacking on what you said, so the cost to put the meter in is solely on the citizens to bring their house to that standard. Because I think that's true too. It's the only fair way.
Our recommendation is that I wish that we have the finance to do that, but leaders in every house don't have that. To pay to that for some reasons. A short data.
Any chance we could, throw this out there, any chance we could waive the cost of city inspection for these folks who are kind of bringing the property down high? Throwing it out there.
Well, I would answer this. Council can do as they choose to, and that's the direction of council. Obviously, we will execute that. I'm not so sure that putting in a meter brings the property to the level. And I would just caution council with our capacity issues. It'll take us time and effort for our inspectors to go out and do that work. And the $90 is anywhere near a gallon is basically the cost of what it costs to feed any extra people out there. And the cost of wear and tear and the administration goes along with it. There's a lot of money somebody going out, taking a couple pictures and putting on a restriction. There's a lot more to it. Certainly, council's purview a decision on what they find our recommendation.
I think I could support this plan. I think it's a happy medium between them. I too would also like to see us examine the water meter at some point, maybe through USDA, a grant program or a no interest loan or something like that going forward. I do think that a lot of A lot of the people that are doing this in the city don't know that they're supposed to be paying to water and sewers. They don't know they're supposed to be getting inspections regularly for their businesses. So along with the letters, I would like to see us, if we approve this, I'd like to see us do a public information campaign through social media, the press, just saying, if you are in this situation, please help us out. You may not know this. Please come forward. So it's just not the people that are getting the letters that would be responsible for this, but other citizens would say, yeah, I guess I should be doing this and paying my fair share. We're seeing the budget. We're seeing where we're going with this. Every penny makes a difference. Every penny helps. And if you're not paying it, other businesses, other citizens are subsidizing your usage. So I think we could do a little campaign with this. I would appreciate that if we could look into that.
Councilor Powers.
Yeah, if I can, I'd like to ask Chief Stoll a question regarding inspections for any listed business, any DBA in the county or listed in the city, obviously is suspect to inspections from the fire department.
We don't have a list with DBAs. We just have a list that we've been generating over the years of businesses. This year I have tasked my firefighters with, if they see a business that we've never inspected, or if it's a new one that's come up within the last 3 years, to write it down so that we can get it into the cycle. Businesses are every 3 years. So there may have been some that have popped up 3 years ago that for some reason didn't get put in our software program.
Yeah.
We did have a change in the software program and we did lose some information. But I found some old on paper files that I've been weeding through, and the inspections actually started this month. So.
All right, good. So it's fair to say you've got, your department's got a pretty safe, accurate account of any business.
We're trying to add to it.
Right.
We're trying to do the research as best we can.
Thank you, Chief.
Your Honor, if I could piggyback, I'm sorry, I just want to piggyback on that thought.
Just to follow up regarding the presentation here, I'm in support of the billing options to an extent. I know that we've talked recently. I mean, we're going to have a discussion tonight about the charter review and the charter commission. We talked about a codes committee, putting together something to take a look at our overlooked or our overdue look at our code system and our codes, going forward. So I'm not too comfortable jumping into any public hearing right now related to this. I think the letters can go out, let the people that are, that are receiving the letters go one way or the other, compared to the parameters of the operations, or whether or not they're listed as considered a commercial business, going forward. And I also wonder what kind of aspect or what kind of concerns you might have from a commercial residential zoning aspect. If we start just throwing, does it have an impact in some of our zoning in any way, shape, or form? So, and I think it's a situation that's come to us, and it's multifaceted, and it's going to need some real deep diving before you can actually come up with a resolution. But I'm in favor of sending the letters out to allow the potential businesses or not to be able to respond and apply accordingly.
Councilor Seavey.
I just wanted to piggyback on the inspection point of it, because I am a business that's inspected every 3 years, and it's really pretty painless. It's mostly, safety stuff. Do you have handrails? Are your electrical outlets properly grounded? Are you running huge extension cords? It's very reasonable to work with. So I just wanted to assure anyone that thought they had to have an inspection that it really is very good for your business to have that inspection, so everyone's working safely, and that you do have time to make any changes that are required. And everything's not been a heavy lift. It's been very easy. It's been very easy to work with over the years.
Maybe for an office of your size, if you're dealing with local restaurants and additional Department of Health codes, that's a whole different ballgame for even for the fire department to go in and inspect a business of that operation, a food service operation or something of that magnitude.
I'm just trying to reassure the small businesses that may not have already been identified that may be considering that it was easy. I know that most of our restaurants, we have a handle on them. We have a handle on the larger businesses. It's the smaller businesses that may not realize they need to do this. That's what I was identifying.
Thank you. Councilor Scamperly.
So when I look at the issue, first of all, I applaud step one. If somebody has an office in their house, there's no reason. I mean, there's not people coming in and out of your house and looking at your computer and things like that. We'd be doing business elsewhere. The rest of it, I have over the years had an equity issue here with businesses and a home, and I've always questioned, the equity and the fairness. I don't know what the starting point is. Is it determining that somebody with a business in their house actually uses more water than what, a family of 4, a family of 6, a family of 8? And I'm just not seeing, I don't know how the city can justify equity. And I wonder if at the moment, until we figure something out, I fully support Storm with the moving towards a meter in the city. I used to not support that at all, but I do. And I wonder if it's worth it, the money, and charging people, or is that business friendly? If, I've always proposed we should expand for people in this town to be able to start a business in more neighborhoods in their homes. We were a mill town, Augsburg, that very few people made the money. The rest of the people were not. It's not like a different community that was a mill town where there were union workers and things, and the middle class really had a lot of money. And I like the opportunity now of trying to, or give people the opportunity to start businesses in their homes. Maybe if we didn't charge things like this, more businesses would come forward, more businesses would be paying sales tax, and that'll help the city revenue altogether. And so what I'd like to do personally is question, how much we really make off of this, if it's worth staff's time, and I'm following the lead of others in that aspect. But I'd like to just scrap it for now and maybe do a little more research to try and promote actual equity here. And I think the only way to do that is through meters, really, in a metered system. Now, a few years ago, the Financial Restructuring Board came to Augsburg, and I know there was discussion on it, although I didn't see it in the report. I also know that we're going to need money for our water treatment facility in the form of grant money, and the state wants us to be a metered city, and I question whether or not we're going to get any kind of grant money if we don't have a metered system. And I also think it's a good idea to petition the state to create a metered system in this city, and possibly the Financial Restructuring Board may be an avenue to help us get there. And so that's my 2 cents. I'm not seeing the equity here. And I know that we have lots of apartments, and apartments are a business. And personally, as I said in an email today, I think apartments should be charged by the unit. And I'm not sure they are. I know many of them are not. But and if that's a legitimate, if you have a family living in an apartment, sometimes 6 or 8 people, and they're not being charged, how is that even close to being equitable to, for example, a hair shop where there's a chair and they're open for business 3 days a week, maybe washing a little hair, or a daycare doing a little bit of extra dishes. And so personally, I'd like to scrap the idea for now. I agree with Councilor Powers and maybe sending out some letters and trying to get some more people to say, hey, I got a business out of my home, and yeah, I'd like to come forward. I don't want to pay these fees, and maybe we can get sales tax revenue out of this. Just a different avenue. So that's my opinion.
Councilor Scamperly made a good point there. Just perhaps if we found a way to modify or eliminate the double billing for our small businesses, it might go a short way towards improving our reputation as being very unfriendly to business here in the city. Whether we actually are or not is up to debate, but we have a reputation of being very unfriendly to new businesses. Just something to think about, Dan.
And I agree with you, Dan, 100%. And that's why we're trying to at least toss one of the fees out the window to be more business friendly. Because it doesn't seem like the cost should lie with the citizens. It seems like there should be some sort of funding we can get to go through all the homes and put, I know it sounds like an astronomical project, but it's what really needs to be done, and it's what will result in equity to go through and meter all of the homes. It doesn't seem like it should fall on the citizens. So I agree with you.
It's a contract. It's a user fee, right? I mean, the city has an obligation to provide a service per unit or whatever, and the citizens are paying it. That's one of the reasons you even live in a city, you know? And so that's a contract, and we'll be having that discussion later. But
I just don't want to penalize people who are trying to start home businesses. And like Storm said, that's more sales tax, more revenue. I don't want to make business funds.
I'd like to weigh in when after everybody's had a chance.
All right, my comments. First of all, I want to thank the city manager and staff who took the time and made the effort, to work through the data collection a year ago to try to get us the information we were requesting to have this discussion. Really appreciate the effort on that. And I do believe that the recommendation from staff is a reasonable solution. At the same time, I do think there's an alternative reasonable solution that should at least be on the table for discussion. And that is an attempt to have going forward, not to have use of staff time having to deal with this issue continuing on into the future. And I think that would be achieved if the dual rate was eliminated. All right. When I did crunch the numbers on slide 6, all right, using the staff estimate that there are 20 to 30 household businesses currently paying a dual rate. So I used a higher number, 30. If 30 water users were switched from a flat rate to flat rate from 2 units, the reduction in the water revenue would be $12,000 on a revenue budget of $1,670,000. To me, that's not a material number. When I look at sewer, 30 units reducing revenue by $545 is a reduction in revenue of $16,350. The budget for sewer rent flat rate is $2,214,000 and change. Again, an immaterial number, 16,000 versus 2.2 million. So there isn't going to be a significant loss of revenue in either water and sewer if this is eliminated, eventually addressed for fairness with meters at some point in the future. But let's get this off the table, done with, so that our staff can focus on other issues of importance. Not that this is not an important issue. Certainly the equity in dealing with user fees is a very important issue. But that would be my suggestion to council for consideration.
I agree.
I agree.
I
And because, like you said, those are immaterial numbers when you're looking at the overall budget, but to the people in our town who are paying that double rate, it's a very material number. So the trade-off is, I agree with you 100%.
it's multifaceted. Like I said earlier, to a degree, it's multifaceted. I dealt with a constituent that was dealing with having their home, the city manager updated us on it, with her home turning into a double unit to a single family home. And she had it all wrapped up in a mortgage, and she was billed additional monies. And so you got 2 sides of a coin here, and we've got our staff that are working, putting in a lot of time in this. We've got a DRI application coming up. We've got a cheese plant that's going to get ready to close up. The budget presentation that came out earlier today, we need sales tax receipts. We need sales tax revenue. We need to increase the revenues in other areas. And not to suggest that this isn't a concern, but to bring back my point earlier, is this money well spent in time and resources with our staff going forward when we're trying to further advance and go forward, and it just, and I'm not slighting it in any way, shape, or form, but it doesn't. I'd rather pick some fresh apples than go and pick one up at the side stand and have them all right. We got to have a lot of data in front of us. We've got codes. We've got new committees that we need to do. This council agreed in January that we were going to come forward and we were going to bring everything back online. Our codes, our city charter, many of the things that the previous council chose not to do at the time. But we've chosen to do that. we've got our own lifting to do here, and this will fix itself. I don't know if there's grants out there for water meters or whatever the case that may be, but as Dan mentioned, you know, the financial restructuring board, I don't even know if it still exists through the division of budget, but if it does, great. Maybe we can reach into them and go down the road. But I concur completely with your statement.
So I will take the unpopular position, and I will say that when we add what we are losing, the $28,000 from the current businesses, and then if we look at that, we even have 10 businesses out there of the identified ones that should be paying this, that's over $40,000. And I dare say it's probably closer to 50 if we really identify the businesses. And as we go through the budget process, every time we ask a department head, do you really need that $50,000? I'm going to think back to this $50,000 that we lost in water and sewer rates, because the water and sewer rates pay a lot. They pay a portion of the salary of our DPW. So that's where we can lose that revenue. I also then say, if we really are doing this to be business friendly, then why aren't we reducing the rates, the meter rates for the restaurants in town, the retail stores in town, and the other small businesses that are paying them already? If we're going to do this and give this gift away, why aren't we giving a gift to every business in the city? So that's my take on this. I think that the plan that was presented by city staff that they worked very hard on is a very reasonable plan. It could be implemented very easily. The hard lift is already done. I would support the plan that is on the table right now, but I do not support, because of fairness, to just eliminate that. I don't. I think that we're hurting other businesses, and it could cause other business to say, hey, I can work from home. Why do I need that office space? Why don't I just close that? And now we have another small office that's vacant in the city. I think this could have a snowball effect of unintended consequences. So I do not support it. And I'm sorry I'm not going to be popular on this issue, but I do it with the budget fully in my heart and looking at where we're going to be looking at in a few months, or in a month, really, where we're going to be looking at. So I cannot support a change of just wiping this out.
Councilor Silly, you have any thoughts?
Express mine. So.
Does management have any thoughts about the suggestion of eliminating the dual rate?
I'll pass it along to the management team that worked on it, if they had any comments. The only thing I would add to is, if there's a business who is being charged a certain cost, presumably a business is in business to make profit. They would pass that cost along to the consumers. And why this to me is an important thing to do is because if you eliminate that, you are basically subsidizing those businesses by residential customers, and that to me is an equity issue as well. So I wanted to point that out. And I think Councilor Stevenson's point about, if we incentivize people to go to their homes, it could be a drain on our commercial areas, where we want them to invest in commercial areas and opening up shops. One member of staff brought to me, there is a business in town that does facials and those types of things. They do it out of their home. That would be a wonderful business to have in a commercial district with a storefront, generating sales tax, but also becoming a destination for those. In the home, maybe that doesn't become quite such a great thing. And when you have your downtowns grow and have shop after shop join, that becomes a domino effect of positivity. I don't see this as a business friendly thing. I think that I view this from a management point of view as shifting a cost of business that can be basically incorporated into that user fee by our other residents. And although it's not a huge number in the grand scheme, thousands versus millions, it is a subsidy nonetheless. It would be good for council to consider that as well. Certainly management can go back to the drawing board and try and quantify some of the consequences, unintended or not, just to try and circle back and just give it some thought and give you some options and some things to think about. It's obviously council's decision who he wants to, but I think there are some other considerations. And I don't believe that doing that actually ends up being business friendly. I think what it does is it shifts business costs to other residences, and I'm not so sure that's enough.
So having heard the discussion tonight, is council prepared to make a recommendation to the city manager, or would you like to take 2 to 3 weeks to think about the arguments that have been made and the alternatives that have been presented and come back and make that decision in 3 weeks? What would be your preference?
I'd like to have at least a couple of days to think about it a little bit. Throw the pros and cons around inside my small brain.
Can I respond to what, it seems like if a business, and I'm not just being argumentative, but it seems like if a business has the capacity to open a storefront location, then that extra meter that we're talking about here is probably gonna hit them, not gonna hit them that hard, because you have to have a certain amount of resources in order to be able to move from your home to a storefront location. But it really hits people, like Jan was saying, she's somebody who's cutting here 3 days a week, and they've got to pay double water. It really hits them. I can see people just saying, I'm just gonna move to this, where I can have my salon and not be penalized for it. So, I mean, I'm not sure I'm buying, self-respect. I'm not sure that I'm.
I respect both sides. I'm getting, like Storm said, a couple days. It's and I think that's a good point too. If somebody has a larger business, I talk to business owners. Most business owners that have a large business say they don't mind paying. There's objections that I've had when you got like and I always use the same. I've been using it since our store was city manager. You got Nick's liquor store down there. One person staying there. What are they flushing toilets 3 times a day? I mean, it just, but it's a business, and I get your point, and I get both points. And right now, I still support scrapping this, at least for a while. Even for a few years, while we try and figure out our meter system and how we're going to get meters.
I mean, this might be an interim solution, and then if you've got a grant, we reimburse the homeowners for the money
And then that falls back to what we're going to put a codes committee together. We're going to put another citizen group together to take a look at our code book. Am I correct to assume that? We spoke about that a little bit?
Well, I know we talked about review of the municipal code. I don't know if we talked about the process by which that would be accomplished.
Okay, maybe I'm jumping the gun there. So, but with that still in mind, with a complete revision coming at our code, which is archaic best, I can't remember the last time it was updated, but thank you. So with that being said, right then and there, a lot's changed since 1988. Right here in the city of Ogden, sort of drastic things have changed. So I'd like to hear from a committee and a recommendation, or from. I'm assuming you and Andrea are probably going to be tackling that initial revision of code at some point or in some capacity. So to take a look at that and to really get some good recommendations. I'm not keen on putting something in place now and then flipping it in 2 weeks. That's kind of short term, but even 2 years within a term, because we may have different recommendations. State may step in. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some funding for meters. I hate seeing the resources, the time and the effort going into this right now when, and it's not to mitigate this again, but we've got a lot of things happening right now that need our staff's attention. That's my position.
So I would say that I think that we asked our staff for some recommendations and solutions. They have some reasonable solutions for us. This is the first they're probably hearing about scrapping it altogether. I would like to see, this has been on our table since March, April. I think for the sake of a couple of weeks, we need to send it back and get staff recommendation as to the implications, what would happen here from our DPW director of planning, et cetera, and our city manager, where we're going with this and what implications would be if we make this change. We know the implications, what they're telling us with the plan that was brought forward by them. Now, I would like to hear their professional side of this and what they feel the implications will be before we make a decision. I think we owe that to our city staff because they're the ones that are going to have to implement this and handle whatever we decide.
So if we take that course of action, then I think we'll be asking staff to come back to council. They don't need to repeat this
No.
proposal. Okay, we have a handle on that. I guess their review and analysis, if the dual rate was eliminated, as well, what would be the implications of doing nothing at this time other than perhaps sending out these affidavits to those businesses that we suspect or might be dual rated businesses that may not be being billed that way in an attempt to try to improve the equity and leave the code alone until it becomes part of a code review in total, in whatever structure that takes. Is that a plan that makes sense for council at this point?
It does to me.
The only thing is that the people that are paying right now, they want the issue addressed right now. And then, you know, I don't mind tabling this for a little bit, but I think that some people want action like soon. I mean, one thing I think we all agree on is if somebody is simply using their address to shuffle papers, there's no reason for an additional water fee. That's step one that we talked about. But other than that, you know, I don't mind tabling a little bit while we think about it, but I think that staff has done a wonderful job presenting us with what we've asked for. And I think it's up to us to think about this and make a decision when we come back. And I can't see leaving the code as is. And to Mike Powers and Mayor Tully, is it really worth the work? I don't know. I do see both perspectives to the other perspective that you brought up on it, about the other businesses. And one more thing, I just want to say, all due respect, Jen, the inspections, I agree with you, need to continue. But, you know.
All right, so at this point, we'll ask for feedback from staff with regards to making no change, which means not adding the definition that they have proposed in the proposed revision to the code. So their opinions about the implications if the dual rate was scrapped, and the implications if we just continue under the current language of the code, but with the outreach desired in an effort to bring home businesses that aren't paying two rates that should be, getting them to the level of billing they should be assessed.
So are we just tabling this until the next meeting?
Well, there's no action for tonight. It was just
For the record.
It was just whether or not we were going to have a public hearing in our next meeting to change the code in some manner.
Right.
I don't think we're in a position to do that tonight.
Right.
We're just going to be asking for more information on ideas that came forward this evening, how they would affect the decisions.
And then if there's going to be a change in the code, is it something we're going to make now or defer to the total review of the municipal code that will occur hopefully begin early in 2025. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Also under old business tonight, I want to invite Fonda to give us an update on wastewater treatment plant upgrades.
Thank you, Mayor. We've had some recent developments today and late Friday of last week on the upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant in addressing the odor issues that happened. So I'm going to invite Charles Pryor from EDR to come up. He's in a position to answer your questions. And he can share with you some of the things that happened late on Friday and today. And I believe they're positive developments.
Good evening, folks. Good to see you all again. So Fonda referenced it, but the last couple of business days have been very active on the efforts to mitigate the odor issues down at the wastewater treatment plant. A short time ago, earlier this afternoon, the Village of Hewelton received DEC approval on the design of the improvements at the tank site. This has been something that's been under development now for several weeks, even a couple of months. It's been quite a process to get through, but the final design documents were submitted to them and we received an approval letter, earlier today. Parallel with that, the village did issue a change order to their contractor late Friday afternoon. Contractor acknowledged receipt of that and began work right away to order the parts and pieces to begin work in earnest down at the site, which in discussion with them earlier today, looks like it's going to be the first half of next week that they'll mobilize to the site, and they're predicting a 5-day work period once they're underway. The work that I'm speaking of is an initial phase of work to install a bypass connection, at the tank. That'll facilitate some future work at the tank for some longer lead equipment that'll likely be into the spring of next year, just given the lead times on the specialized equipment.
Okay, any questions or comments about this information?
Just a very good update. Very happy to hear this.
Mayor, if I could just add, I want
Yes,
to thank
please.
Charles and his team at EBR for really expediting this. I wrote him pretty hard the last couple of days. He's come through, and I thank him and the team. Also, thanking the village people and the mayor who was on vacation and stood by her phone and the printer and signed the change order and made sure that it happened on Friday. She's always taken the position that this is not something that our residents should be going through, and they are. So people have gone above and beyond to help the residents of the city. And so I thank everybody, but especially Charles and especially the mayor.
Thank you. Very appropriate. Thank you, Charles. Any other old business to come before council tonight? Okay, it brings us to new business, and I will offer comment with regards to the process by which we will begin a city charter review. Presuming council is supportive of the timeline that we discussed tonight, we will put at the city's website tomorrow an application that would be made available to interested citizens who might have interest in serving on a charter review commission. That application will have a deadline of submission to the city clerk of October 31st. In the hope that at our first meeting in November, that city council can appoint 12 qualified voters as stated in the charter to become the next city charter review commission, with their first meeting scheduled for January 8th of 2025. That will give a good 7 to 8 week period for city staff to give members of that commission information about their role. There's documentation and publications from the New York State Division of Government that are helpful to charter review commissions. I know I've served on commissions twice in my lifetime. And it also gives time for council, for staff, for citizens to submit to the Charter Review Commission any suggestions that they have for revisions to the charter. Once the Charter Commission is appointed, another form will be posted at the city's website that will serve as the basis to for suggested amendments and revisions to the city charter. So we'll try to make this as user-friendly as we can. And then the introductory meeting will be January 8th. And then following that, the commission will determine its own schedule and timeline. And we look forward to a review of the city charter. So is that timeline and process acceptable for all of council?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, we will issue a press release tomorrow informing the public of this process. Any other new business to come before council tonight? That brings us to items of discussion, and we will begin with City Manager Fonda Cronis.
Thank you, Mayor. There has been some back and forth and some questioning about some of the demolition at the Letchworth project and reusing some of those building materials. And so I guess the question is it the board's or the council's appetite to do some type of resolution urging that to happen?
For the city to basically get some limestone, sandstone.
Or at least support the reuse and the reclamation of material. I think a couple of members of council have voiced that, I think.
I think we should support that.
If we can acquire some of the Potsdam sandstone in particular, we do have buildings in our town that may be able to use that for repairs. I know Potsdam is looking at it, and if we can piggyback with Potsdam and some of these other places, and we might not necessarily have to store it ourselves. If we have a means to do that, it may save the demolition company some landfill fees, because as I understand it, they were just going to haul all that stuff to the landfill. In fact, that I believe was part of the contract with the state of New York that had to be disposed of in that manner.
I believe I've had a couple of conversations with Senator Walczyk's office and staff in the last couple of weeks related to this. And as to Storm's point, the buildings and the materials are owned by the Office of Mental Health. But from what I understand, they've been in agreement to some kind of reuse program, reuse aspect of some of the material there. My only concerns going forward, and I shared this with Senator Walczyk's office, was that, and they'd be willing to be an advocate for us to the Commissioner of Mental Health and the Office of Mental Health in the state of New York. And, you know, they'd be willing to be an advocate to support us in any endeavor that we're looking for, whether it be Potsdam or anybody else, from what I understand. But some of the concrete and some of the mix that they stacked the stone with back in the day had, you know, there was abatement issues, from what I understand. I think that may be done now, some of it. I don't know completely, but obviously I would support any use of that for here, for this city, or for any community, quite frankly, to be able to utilize those materials, you know, as long as it doesn't come cost us in any way.
So perhaps our next step is to reach out to Potsdam government, see where they are in the process of in their requests to access the sandstone in particular, and see if we might have a mutual effort where both Ogdensburg and Potsdam could gain access to that sandstone for their respective needs.
Will do.
Okay.
Possibly the county. I think they have some buildings, some structures also. And I think if we collaborated, you know, to Mike's point with Senator Walczyk and Assemblyman Gray, I know they're both on board too. So just some thoughts there. I don't know if the county's interested or not, but I do know that they do have some buildings like that. So
can't hurt to ask.
Right.
Yeah, they were both drivers in both offices of the Assembly and the Senate were both drivers in this initiative.
Okay, next with the Board of Ethics, just one final, we've had discussions in the last 2 or 3 meetings about establishing a Board of Ethics. I provided to council the City of Ogdensburg's Code of Ethics, City of Watertown's Code of Ethics, as well as language from the State Controller's Office with regards to Article 18 of General Municipal Law, which would govern the establishment of such a board. So just wanted to do 2 things before we brought anything to council for action. One being, you know, our commitment to establishing such a board, but at the same time, you know, if there was any need to address other sections of Code of Ethics, and after tonight's discussion, I think we defer that until the overall review. So
I agree.
Okay, so with that, then we'll put something on the agenda for our next meeting with regards to the Board of Ethics. Likely requires a amendment to our code, so we'll have a public hearing, set the date for the public hearing at the next meeting, October 15th, and then October 28th, we'll take action on it one way or the other. Okay. Any other items for discussion? I know I have a couple more, but
I'm good.
okay, and this is in reference to Ken's comments to us earlier this evening. On Thursday, I received a letter at my home from Richard Vall, CEO of North Star Health Alliance, that was addressed to the town of Ogdensburg mayor and the town of Ogdensburg with my home address. And so a little annoyed with that personally, because obviously we're not a town, we're a city. But I did learn today that they also sent a letter addressed simply to City Hall, that when you open it, did address it to the city of Ogdensburg mayor. So, so they're halfway right, I guess. But anyway, I was debating whether to read this whole thing. We're going to have it entered into the minutes, but I think based on the comments that were made tonight about this issue, I think I'll read the letter in total. North Star Health Alliance is in the process of submitting a certificate of need application for the operation of an ambulance service. The primary objective of this application is to establish paramedic level interfacility transfer services to and from our hospitals, medical offices, school-based clinics, and outpatient facilities. These include Carthage Area Hospital, Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, North Country Orthopedic Group, Meadowbrook Terrace, and our rural health clinics in Carthage, Canton, Hammond, Madrid, Ogdensburg, Philadelphia, and Waddington. Additionally, our school-based clinics are located at Beaver River Central School, Carthage Middle School, and Lafargeville Central School. In line with our commitment to the communities we serve, this ambulance service will also participate in countywide mutual aid plans if requested and as available. As part of the application process, it is essential to demonstrate public need. The New York State EMS Council and the Department of Health define public need as follows. The demonstrated absence, reduced availability, or inadequate level of care in ambulance or emergency medical services available to a geographical area, which is not readily correctable through the reallocation or improvement of existing resources. The urgent need for additional emergency medical service providers and ambulances is apparent across New York State, particularly in Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence counties. This need has been documented by various agencies and highlighted by numerous media outlets over the past few years. Despite ongoing efforts, the shortage of EMS providers and services remains critical. North Star Health Alliance is committed to addressing this shortage by establishing this vital ambulance service in our region. North Star Health Alliance remains dedicated to the well-being of the communities we serve. We kindly request your support for this application by providing a letter of endorsement signed by your Chief Executive Officer before September 25th, 2024, which is Wednesday. For your convenience, a sample letter of support is enclosed. Please send your response via email. And should you have any questions, feel free to contact me directly. So I won't read the language of this suggested letter, but you know, and I did share this with council and administration before tonight's meeting, so they were aware this request came in. And certainly, from my point of view, the tight timeline requested that we make an evaluation whether or not to support this application before September 25th just isn't possible. There's no way we have enough time to properly vet the request, to properly seek the information, the references to you know, the documented by various agencies, this need, whatever. I mean, you've seen no numbers, you know, attached to this. We have no information other than just this request, which to me personally seems sort of rushed, unless there's a specific deadline they face in filing this application. I don't know that. I can't tell that from the letter. But in any event, I do feel that it is a decision for the council to make whether or not we want to recommend to the city manager that he submitted a letter in support of the application, that we take no action at all, or that we submit a letter expressing our rejection of the application. So with that, I'll let other counselors comment.
Can you ask a quick question? What date did you get the date on the letter?
The postmark was, at least in the letter received by the city, the postmark was September 17th, received by the city September 19th. And I know I received my letter at home September 19th. So.
I think Ken Gardner made some good points this evening. I've always supported the OVRS, and I'm going to follow his lead personally. And at this moment, like you say, we haven't had really a lot of time for vetting it. I like what Ken had to say, and I'm going to support the OVRS. Suggest that we do not sign this at this time or send a letter.
I will agree with Dan with that. Some really good points were made this evening by Ken. I personally have experienced some of the issues that he brought up this evening that are concerns. So I cannot support sending a letter in support of this at all at this time.
Yeah, I don't either. And I'm just going to put it bluntly. I mean, and Storm, correct me if I'm wrong, or Ken, the state just passed some legislation as far as treatment for EMTs and within ambulances and for billing purposes, basically to allow them to give more medical care prior to them going to a medical facility. Correct?
Speak to that, Mike. Previously, in order for the ambulance to get any pay at all, especially for Medicaid or Medicare, we had to transport the patient to the hospital. If we treated on scene, there was nothing. The new law in New York State allows us to collect some revenue from Medicaid if we treat on scene and release, or we are now going to be allowed to take people to like the addiction treatment center, a wellness clinic, things like that, and be reimbursed for that. And I kind of think maybe his mention of the clinics and stuff may play a role. There is one other important thing that's coming up. We're involved in a battle with particularly Excelis Blue Cross Blue Shield, is they do not want to pay us for pay ambulance services for transports, as they feel that that's a continuation of hospital care, and that what they pay the hospital should be sufficient, which means that the ambulance service is going to be left totally out of that. And like now, I don't know if it's in arbitration yet. Ken might be able to speak further to that, but it's if the insurance companies win that particular battle, there will be no ambulance services anywhere in the state of New York making transports.
Right.
Because can't do it for free.
Right. And so with that legislation, I see this as a potential money grab. Plain and simple. And I'm not saying that the service isn't needed. Obviously, medical care is vital to the health of anybody that's injured and or is ailing in any way, shape, or form. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the timing of this and the structure when it came out, and Ken's outline and of the dates and the times and the potential misleading of information is troublesome for me, and I would not support this at all.
Doesn't the city have an ongoing contract with?
Yes, and I shared that with council earlier today by email, and that deals specifically with the services provided within the city of Ogdensburg. It doesn't deal with the transports outside.
And I guess I'd further add that I am just really concerned that if this has been put together so quickly and so inadequately, that I am concerned with service going forward at this point. This has not given council a lot of time to vet anything, to ask any questions. I truly cannot support this in any way. I echo all the reasons that everyone else has said. And at this time, I would just say that we should not take any action on this letter.
Right. So it sounds like the consensus council is no action on the letter, no direction to submit a letter of support for the application.
Yeah, maybe we should make a recommendation that they take the business one-on-one writing class.
Due to my position of the rescue squad, I would have to abstain from anything. But I would like to say that based on my experience and our experience in obtaining CONs and the process involved, his January 1st deadline is totally unrealistic. I would guess if it's successful, which I personally doubt it will be, I think you're looking closer to the end of July or August before the stadium looks at it.
Should we consider some, with these other entities, from what I understand, reaching out to some, and I don't have a whole lot of friends in the medical world other than my orthopedic surgeons, but with all that aside, maybe a support letter and suggesting from the city that we're not in support of this certificate of need to share with Carthage, with Canton, Lafargeville, the central school districts, that maybe they can see what we're kind of seeing, or
I would hesitate at this point to issue a letter opposing the application without, again, properly vetting it, which would include having the opportunity for Mr. Duval to come and speak to us.
I agree.
Right, and I don't know if he received it. I did send him an email, I think last night, indicating that I was going to be speaking about this at tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I think the direction is right now, no action at all. And at least at this point, no need for additional follow-up unless further requests come forward to us.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yep.
Okay. And then just my own personal observation with the comments about sales tax and the questions that Wendy asked about when she was at the lectern earlier tonight. And, our city controller can correct me if I'm wrong, but the city of Ogdensburg did fairly well in terms of its sales tax revenue in the last 2 years of the 10-year agreement it had with St. Lawrence County. It's my recollection that in that last year, the city received $4.7 million in sales tax revenue. I think the budget that year budgeted $3.7 million of revenue. And I think probably in the year or two prior to that, we had significant revenue over fund balance, which we saw the fund balance increase from maybe $2.5 million to $6 million. And then use that fund balance to reduce tax levies and make other decisions brought us to where we are today with trying to editorially better manage fund balance. Okay. And so, to try to compare where we were 4.7 million in that agreement to where we are right now, I don't know that you can really compare those because they were structured in two different ways. It's not, I don't know that Ogdensburg was specifically generating $4.7 million of sales tax revenue on its own 4 years ago. We were taking advantage. We were advantaged by the fact that the county as a whole was doing very well in its collection of sales tax during that 10-year period. So, not to say that somehow a review of area city businesses, whatever audit or however you want to handle it, shouldn't be conducted to assure that businesses are completing their forms correctly and accurately, and whether that's a function of the city or the state, I don't know. It's not an unreasonable request, but the way as the city manager pointed out tonight to generate sales tax growth is through investment in the city to improve retail, so step one of that new goal took place tonight with the presentation of that report.
Your Honor, I think I would also be interested in something Wendy had said, and if we're permitted to have the breakdown of the sales tax so we know what to go after. Like, is most of the sales tax coming from convenience gas sales? Is the rest of it coming from restaurants? Where is the sales tax coming from? So we have an idea what areas we could focus on or enhance.
If I could just add, there is some publicly available data that we can crunch for you on that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think the bigger issue with any sales tax reporting is, and if I remember correctly, is getting an analysis, say, from a big box store. or some of those, like the Walmarts and the Lowe's, because they share within the county all their receipts. So the receipts from Ogdensburg don't necessarily report to Ogdensburg. Am I correct to assume that, Angela? And yeah, along with Canton or Walmarts in Potsdam and Messina.
Sales tax is a destination type payment. So if I walk into a big box store in the city of Ogdensburg and I ask them to deliver the product to my home, then typically the sales tax is based upon the date of the place of destination and not actually the fact that that sale took place in the city of Ogdensburg.
Right.
Mm.
That's right. I remember that now.
Angela, I am correct in the fact that sales tax on automobiles is based on residence rather than the actual point of sale.
That is accurate.
Okay, anything else for Angela? Thanks for stopping.
Thank you.
Any other items for discussion? So at this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you will have 2 minutes.
Tanya Snyder, water sewer. Okay, so I guess my question is, I don't care which way you go, I'm paying anyway. So one way or another, the biggest thing is that has to happen is that it has to be fair and equitable across the board. You cannot just pick and choose who you feel is using this water. I've had a commercial business and I have a home occupancy. At a commercial business, I had other employees that worked with me and I never met the water quota. So I guess I don't understand, like back in 1988, how did they come up with that the businesses would pay to water to sewer? Why that fee? You know, why is that the fee that's being charged? Because that's not the water that I'm using. And I mean, I guess that's the part that I don't understand. And honestly, the only reason this is brought up is that I brought it up because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, did you say that there was possibly 20 pieces of property that were found that were paying this amount of money, paying to water to sewer? I mean, paying at the rate at this point. Because honestly, out of the 20 to 30 foils that I've done, I can only find 3 of us. So I'm curious because you're saying that the data system's down from the computer system. Where did we come up with these other people? Because I mean, I looked up some pretty prominent places and they're not paying it. So I guess that's where that comes down to. I guess, I don't know. I got a lot of questions when it comes down to this, and I know you're sick of listening to me, but it just doesn't make sense how, I can even see charging us something, but why to water to sewer? I mean, it's a lot. It's $1,000. And then you're talking about raising the water rates and the sewer rates. So we're going to be coming into even more. And I am that hairdresser that's working 3.5 days out of the week. My people are dying, actually, and I'm honestly, sooner or later, I'm going to have to get a lift chair to get them up and down the stairs. So I guess that's where I come into the factor of to water, to sewers. I don't get it. I don't know. So I'll look forward to seeing what you have to bring to the table in 2 weeks. Thanks.
Thank you, Tanya.
I'm Marlene Kai in Ogdensburg. I'm a daycare provider. What do you classify as a home business? These 30 to 40 businesses that you have, they're low businesses. We don't need a store frontage to have a business. We are low. We've got a daycare center coming in 2025. We've got UPKs that are open all day now. Yous aren't being fair at all. Yous are opening up a can of worms, and I really don't think you want to go down this road. How different usage from a normal usage to a double fee? How do you come up with that? It's me and my husband at my house. I have 3 kids right now. 2 of them are in diapers. You want me to pay double when taxes are already skyrocketed? Doesn't make sense to me. And you want to table it. You're still charging her money. And you don't even have an answer. Why are you still charging these people? If you do your homework like some people have, you got 3 businesses paying double sewer and water. Is that fair to these 3 businesses? And I don't think the real high-tech businesses should be paying it. You want to bring revenue in, you're going to lose it because you're pushing the small businesses out of the city. And you're going to be a little ghost town pretty soon. Are the drug dealers paying it? Because they make a lot more money than any of us. How are you going to monitor the businesses? The honor system here? Because that's not going to work. Because I think I can come up with more than 50 businesses than what you came up with. It's not hard to get from here. Can you give us a list of the 40 people you came up with?
I think it said 20 to 30, didn't it?
That's accurate.
Can we have the 20 to 30, see if we're the big businesses that should be in the store frontage on 4th Street?
So we'll take the request into consideration.
Can you ensure us all businesses are going to be treated equally? You're going out giving out letters now. It all needs to be done at once. You're opening up a can of worms. You can't pick and choose who you're going to send these letters to. You need to do your homework. There's a lot of gray areas here. How will this really affect the budget? The only fair way to do this is the water meters. This is a waste of time. You do not have the manpower to even be bothered with this. We've got other things in Augsburg to take care of. We need to take our city back and clean it up. Not worry about little small businesses that you want to run out of town because you think your revenue is going to be high. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlene.
Hello, my name is Marissa McIntosh. Slight change of topic, if that's okay. I guess I kind of just wanted a bit more clarification in terms of, so the 2-step plan for stabilizing city finances and from sort of focusing on retail. I guess I would like more of a clear definition on what you mean by retail. And for example, where would the money be coming? I mean, if there aren't consumers who have money to spend on retail, how would that help boost the sales taxes? Like, I guess I potentially just want a bit more of an in-depth explanation as somebody who's might just be misunderstanding. Yeah.
I'd be happy to meet with you and go over it in more detail if you'd like to make an appointment.
Hi, thank you.
Wendy Hamilton again. I just want to, first of all, applaud you. These are 2 issues that have been hanging around, but council and city employees have been digging into it. You've listened to the concerns of the citizens, and you're trying to work out an answer and a solution. And honestly, I have to thank you for that because we haven't had that for the last 4 years. We've been ignored. So thank you. It's hard, and I appreciate the work. I do want to say that I think there's some semantic issues with regard to calling something business and whether it's in a commercial district or if it's a home business. So therefore in a residential area. And maybe as you work through some of the stuff you're talking about, you can try to identify that. I doubt that there are 40 commercial businesses who aren't, satisfying their water and sewer in some way. But I think that it's maybe the residential home businesses where we've got an issue and who are sliding by. And I think fairness is something to think about, but life isn't fair. And I'm a single woman living in a home where I'm paying, I'm helping to subsidize everybody's water and sewer. And, you know, I accept that because that's what it is here. And if, yes, down the road, we can get to metering, that is the ultimate fairness. And if I could apply for a meter now, I would, because I don't have a pool, and I don't use a lot of water, but that's down the road. So I think when you start a business here, we have to look at what is the type of business. And certainly Fonda has gone a long way to actually putting that definition into the new code. So thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to address City Council, please use the raise hand feature, and the city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you will have 2 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Greg McNamara, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. I hope you're a little leeway with my time, since how it wouldn't come through earlier when I tried to speak. First, I'd like to address what the city manager said earlier about our local economy here and sales tax revenue and retail. We need to build retail. First of all, our economy is shit in the bed, hardcore. And a lot of it will have to do with what happens this November with our presidential election. And it'll take a year or two if it is able to get better. This is a broke community. I call this place the land of the poor. I run my own business. I do 90% of my business outside of Ogdensburg. It's for a reason. I don't mean to be offensive towards anybody, but we struggle here. Everybody who lives here struggles. When the economy is headed in a position like it is, or it's getting worse and worse, how could you possibly think that you're going to bring in more retail to make more sales tax revenue? And I honestly think, sir, I'm not trying to be rude or nothing. I think it's because you're from a different area and you're not familiar with, you know, the people who live here and what they try to budget themselves upon on a weekly basis. This place absolutely needs jobs. It needs industry. We have what you guys call a so-called industrial park down by the Psych Center area. And I never knew this till the last administration, but all those businesses that come in there, they get a tax break. For 10 or 15 years, I forget the amount, but it's one of those two, to bring jobs into the city. I wouldn't even consider going down there, and I've known some people with skills, decent amount of skills, to get jobs down there. They pay the bare minimum wage, all of those jobs, and forgive me if I'm wrong on a very few that are down there. That's it. They shouldn't be getting no tax breaks. Those people that own them buildings and them businesses and them corporations, they're driving Mercedes. They have properties in Canada, the States. They're not missing any meals. But they come in Ogdensburg and pay the bare minimum wage and treat their employees like shit. And I've never worked down there. I just want to let you know what people have told me. Now, they get a tax break. Where's the tax break for the people here? Like Miss Kaya, who just got up and made a very good point, and everyone else, about what you are talking about with this water rate. There's a lot of can of worms. Just like Mr. Powers said last meeting, you guys have no idea the Attorney General could get involved in this. You're not metering water. You have no clue who's using what. You can't do that. It's just like your fees for brush at the dump. It's no good. I'd like to talk about some other stuff now.
Well, Greg, you 2 minutes.
Wait. I hope you would be willing, like I said, Mr. Tooley, to be willing to understand that I didn't get to speak earlier where I should have had 5 more minutes. So
I'm sorry, you're not going to.
We shouldn't be using the water rates to pay for city positions, like Angela Gray already said before in the last administration.
Disconnect the call, okay. Anybody else, Kath?
I do not see any other hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, with that, we have a resolution to adjourn to executive session, which I will introduce. Whereas City Manager Fonda Cronus requests an executive session with members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose, now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move. Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
approved.
We do not anticipate any action following executive session, so I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting will be adjourned after executive session.
Can I just say thank you to all the young people who are here? Really nice to see you here.
And I just hope that I apologize.